Hi there, my name is Will Cullen, and I'm here to talk to you again about movement. So, I'm a Guild certified Feldenkrais practitioner with the Feldenkrais Guild of North America, and I want to talk more about this more than meat concept. If you're not familiar with what I'm talking about, please look in the description below where I can link you to the first video. But I think that a part of regaining our integrity and regaining our humanity, quite apart from realizing where in society we function, realizing with whom we function, so who makes us human, what sorts of activities and what sorts of engagements with society make us human. But additionally, we need to become, I think, a little bit more aware of and potentially concerned about the activities that make us less human, the activities that bring us closer to meat, or the organizations that may want, for one reason or another, to dissemble us, to disintegrate us a little bit, to prevent us from being an integral whole. Now, in this, I'm speaking as somebody who has worked in many different fields of customer service and food service over the past nearly 25 years. And I've seen a lot of shifts and a lot of changes in the way that training has been approached and the way in which leadership has been approached within larger corporate structures since the advent of the internet. And what's interesting to the internet about me is that it allows me to talk about the Feldenkrais awareness through movement method to the world. It allows me to make art that can be reached and accessed by people across the world as well. In many ways, when we look at some of the most famous and wonderful artists coming out of YouTube right now, Canadian singer and comedian Lubalin, Scott Bradley, the postmodern jukebox. I could go on. Jonathan Young, the new reinterpreter of Disney for the heavy metal era. These large artists that are coming out, they show us that we're in a post-depression renaissance, possibly like we haven't seen since the 1800s. But it's tempered by a corporate structure that controls the internet and controls the training that comes from higher ends of a corporate structure to lower ends of a corporate structure almost entirely. Well, I won't be so brave as to say the internet is controlled almost entirely. That would be a little bit doomsaying. But I can say that the experience for the starting minimum wage worker today is very different than the experience for the starting minimum wage worker 25 years ago. Now, why do we care and how is this relevant to awareness through movement? Well, we still live in a nation in which the majority of customer service workers are forced to stand in one position all day. We still live in a country in which minimum service workers are not permitted to walk around or to move parts of their body to stretch when they need to, or to rediscover their heel or their hip if it was lost, because they're locked into a transaction and after that transaction is the next transaction. We live in a world where these workers in warehouses or stocking shelves have to move continuously, repetitively, and without awareness of or training on how to make those movements in a way that uses their integral whole. And so they're selling their body, in a sense, to survive. But they're not being trained on how to maintain their integrity and to maintain their humanity. We still live in a world where individuals don't have agency over their own focus at work. They are forced to focus on a task continuously, regardless of whether or not it would be efficient. In a sense, people aren't allowed to be curious about themselves or to feel free in many circumstances to fail and to learn, because training is a much shorter process than it used to be in most um, service areas that are run by large corporations. And there are enough applicants behind you that if you aren't able to succeed with a minimal amount of guidance quickly, it's very likely that you'll be replaced rather than being given agency to fail, to learn, and to grow. So, the reason why this is relevant is that it's the antithesis of organic learning. Organic learning is about promoting an environment of safety that allows us to fail, to learn, to grow, to try many different things. And it's also about a feeling of security, of knowing that you have time to work through your process, not that you have to get it right immediately or feel like you're going to be replaced. That there's a focus on how you learn, and that the goal is really learning how to learn rather than on what you're learning how to function within a paradigm or within a structure. And in many of these structures, the learning is heavily slanted towards one learning style, either visual or auditory or kinesthetic, with the other learners being left to create their own learning or fail and possibly no longer be able to pay for their own survival. I don't know what the answer is, but I know that continuing to support large corporations that treat humans like parts of humans, that expect the humans to stand at the prescribed angle with their torso facing a prescribed direction, not allowed to move their monitor as they're scanning the items at a prescribed rate or putting boxes on the shelves at a particular box count per hour, that these things dissemble a person. The person working at the big box outlet store with bad knees and bad hips and bad back, they are slowly becoming pieces of a human being. The person who is working at an office job, working for a tax center, with sore eyes and sore shoulders and sore fingers, they are slowly themselves becoming parts of a human being. The barista at the coffee shop, who's exclusively pulling with one arm bone in their forearm over the other, because they've not been taught how the two forearm bones connect to the parts of the hand, and they've not been told that they can pull more with their shoulder and more with their chest than with their fingers. The barista who gets repetitive strain injury in every part of their hand is becoming more parts of a person and less a person. The security guard, to give a more specific example again, who's been locking their hips and locking their abdomen for their entire life because they've been told that holding your core tight is the way to stand up straight, who winds up with massive plantar fasciitis pain in both feet because the feet are picking up some of the work that their immobile hips, their immobile core, and then eventually their immobile shoulders should have been doing. They are slowly becoming parts of a human being. In a world where we are told by our parents and some of our older friends that there is nothing that can be done, that this is just what it means to get old, that you get old and your hands start shaking, you get old and your eyes go blurry, you get old and your hips go, your back goes, your knees go. For those people that feel that there's no other possibility, I'm worried for those people because they have been so thoroughly convinced by themselves and their experience up until this point that there is no other option, that they and their society are condemning them to a miserable old age that's potentially unnecessary. All I ask, all I want for myself, for my family, for my friends, is for us to really be aware of what is actually causing our discomfort and how all the parts of our bodies can collaborate together with our nervous systems to enact our actions, to enact change upon our environment. How we can do the same thing in many different ways. How many different options we have to lift the box, to open the cupboard, to put our shoes on. Because, for one thing, it's the beginning of an investment in what will hopefully be a very long and pleasurable old age. And for another, in a world where so many forces seem to be trying to make us less than human in order to keep us, under their thrall, I suppose. To be aware of how many different ways you can do something, to be aware of how many parts of you can be engaged in an action, is almost a subversive action. And so, I suppose all I'm asking, my call to action, is to be aware. Because the people that are trying to keep down this beautiful second renaissance of movement and awareness and art that's beginning to happen, the enemy is awareness. So be aware. Be aware of yourself. Be aware of your environment. Be aware of the people around you and how you make connections with them. Be aware of how you and everyone who is growing with you are more than meat. And join that movement and keep it going. If you enjoyed this, please follow us on Facebook and on Instagram, subscribe to our YouTube, and come take a quest with me. Claim your free quest at kineticquest.ca today.